Thank you, Aisha. I mean, I wasn't in Parliament when the bill was passed. I happened to be in a workshop when I heard the bill had been passed. But to say that it was a surprise, it was not a surprise. We still had followed our first briefing yesterday. We had indicated that there was a possibility the bill was going to pass today. And as I said, and I'm listening to some judge make his applications on the content of the bill. I'm just a bit surprised that maybe we've mitigated past the thing that he had raised up in the bill in terms of prescribing the act of homosexuality, which is already covered under the Section 104 of our criminal code. I think he also raised the point about willingly funding promoting homosexuality. I mean, I beg to differ that in all the time we've been doing advocacy on rights, there has never been any attempt by any of these advocacy human rights coalitions to say we are funding, we are pushing for homosexual acts to be legalized. We have never said that. We have argued on the basis that rights are the cornerstone of our democracy. And as such, if the Constitution, which some judge himself in 2015 had sat on the panel on the television program and has justified why he didn't think LGBT people need to be criminalized and why he believes that the Constitution is sacrosanct when it comes to the issues of rights. I don't want to have that 250 some judge back. It's quite unfortunate that we have to get to this place where we are today. I'll just say that for now.
Well, Dr. Odoi, you want to respond to that? I'll give you the opportunity to do that. Let me hear from Dr. Amanda Odoi. Your group also describes this law as harmful to democracy and to the country's development. Why so?
Thank you very much for the opportunity and good evening to your listeners. I think there's one thing I want to draw attention to before I move to this question is the fact that advocacy is not opinionated. Advocacy seeks to drive the interest or a cause of something in the extent of causing a change. It can be policy, which is systemic. It can be an individual form of advocacy, which a group come together to make a claim or push for an agenda. And it's informed by research. It's informed by activities. It's informed by data. And then there's self-advocacy. So LGBT persons could have done a self-advocacy. But our group moves beyond self-advocacy to look at the impact of this bill on the group, on the society. So we've sat down, and that's the sad aspect of it, that we've sat down and a group of people with a particular interest have pushed for a law that affects the entire country. So we have a bill or a law which has not been assented yet that talks about the fact that if same-sex relationships, it's anal sex, or any forms of unwanted sexual activity as they have defined in the law, it's just limited to queer persons. But then when anal sex, which can be detrimental to the health, as they are claiming, also to women when they are forced to have anal sex in heterosexual relationships. But we are saying that, well, with the power in our hands, we can discriminate against a certain gender whilst we give certain limitations to a certain group. We also have instances where people's lives are going to be monitored. So at first, queer people have lived with us. Actually, there's evidence to show that queer people have always lived with us. We have gone to school. The reasons why we have norms and practices in our schools which have sanctions around these relationships is the fact that they have always been with us and we thought that we should be regulated. But with the start of this bill and the discussions around it, hostility has increased against the community to the extent that even non-queer persons who exhibit effeminate characteristics are right now tagged. You go to the job place, your movement is monitored. People are discriminated against. an employer can decide that because you exhibit effeminate characteristics, I cannot take you or employ you in my job just in case I am tagged for employing somebody that is queer. Because by walking about, I do not claim to be a queer person. You will never know. If you never catch me and act, you can never know. This has implications for people's livelihoods, people's economic participation, people's engagement in education. Now you're saying that academic institutions must out all students who are assumed or perceived or are found to be queer. You're denying them right to education. There's equal access to education that must be for everyone. And this has implications for the lives of these young women, young men that will have to go to school. It has implications for employers. You're saying that the client-doctor confidentiality, if you're a doctor and you have a client coming to you and it tells you that, well, I am queer and because of this and that, I need this kind of services, I must be ousted. And it has implications for brain drain. We've realized that in most countries, people who feel that they are being targeted are leaving. There are a lot of us, if nobody tells you that they are queer, you will not know. So there are skilled people we have trained that may have to leave this country at this point because they do not feel safe. And these are the economic issues that we are raising. And the fact that this bill does not only apply to queer people, and we are at risk. As a parent, you have to give up your child. You have to report your child who is found to be queer. And this child may be the breadwinner of the family. What do you do as a pastor or as a priest? If somebody comes to you and comes to confess, now you have to report that person. So what are the mental stress, the torture we are going to take a lot of people who are not necessarily queer through these phases has implication, which then, and some of the words that are being used also, for example, if you're saying that promotion is subjective. As an academic, my specialization is in sexualities. And as part of sexualities, I do LGBT studies. As public health workers, we need to talk about some risk, even around sexualities, and it may include talking about queer people and some of the support that they will need. It is for the good of the country and for us to be able to look at the various groups, their needs, and how to meet them so that it does not become a problem. At this point, it is going to be very difficult to engage in such conversations. And you're saying that who willingly funds research fees policy? Research fees the betterment of the lives of people. So if I get funding and to research on queer issues, and there's implication. If I make known that I'm researching into this field, I'm looking for these kind of people to talk to, there's implication. So you're indirectly restricting production of knowledge, participation, and empowerment of people and how to engage their lives. And these are the things we're saying is dangerous. If we already have a law that says that if you engage in a certain sexual act, you are going to be arrested, why do we have to create new ones that has to affect an entire population, a whole country, and limit the rights, the voices of people and their ability to engage, and redefine laws to suit, and the redefinition of laws, which has implications for other groups, such as genders, such as women, and how they can engage even in sexual relations in their bedroom.
Sam George is here.
And also, if I'm a mother and I go into a hotel with a daughter or from a friend, and we want to stay in a hotel as two females, right now when you're booking a hotel, you have to call, and then presumably the hotel has to ask you, are you going to be two females living in a room? Are you queer? All these restrictions, all this discomfort that are coming with it are things that we think that we should have paid attention to before we push for something.
Sam George wants to react. You want to react to Michael and then Dr. Odoi.
First and foremost, I appreciated that Michael, if he was going to make reference to the video from me on my Majority Caucus on Joy News, should not have just listened to a 60-second clipping that's been put out, but requested Joy FM to give him the full tape. I spoke in context, so Michael, go get the context and understand it fine. Now, secondly, when you say that people have rights, and I mean, Mike, we had this conversation on Newsfile about 2 weeks ago. I gave you a simple homework. I expected that you would do better this time. I asked you 2 weeks ago on Newsfile to show me what part of the Constitution of Ghana, the 1992 Constitution, gives people rights based on sexual preferences. You can't just come on national TV and say that people have rights. Rights are defined in Ghana's Constitution. And this also deals with the misinformation put out by Dr. Amanda Odoi. Rights are defined in the Constitution. Even the right to life can and will be curtailed by the state on certain grounds and basis. All the rights in the 1992 Constitution are premised on the fact that they are not injurious to public safety, public health, and public morality. It is clear that the proponents of this pro-LGBTQ agenda read the Constitution in bits and pieces and omit certain parts. Because if you read the 1992 Constitution that you say gives you rights or gives the people you advocate for rights, did you read the Constitution to realize that rights can be curtailed on the basis of public morality? And do you understand what morality and public morality is? Do you understand what public health is? Dr. Amanda Odoi admits that in the course of their work, they have to deal with people who are at risk because of their sexual activities. And you don't think that that constitutes public health? And again, the misinformation. I don't know if she's referring to the bill that myself and my colleagues have authored. But you see, people have created their own impression of the bills and are fostering their misinformation and miseducation on people. First and foremost, I mean, several of the claims she's made here that you can't go and apply for a job. Why? When you're going to apply for a job, does anybody ask you who you slept with in your bedroom? Am I the one asking LGBTQ practitioners to define themselves by their sexuality? What happens in the confine of your bedroom remains the business of you and your partner. Nobody's coming into your bedroom to find out what's going on. But when you decide to define yourself by what is supposed to be your private sexual preference, then it becomes a matter of public policy, and public policy will apply to it. And if this is all about funding for you, I am more interested in the sanctity of Ghanaian children and not the funds that you receive to do what you claim is academic research. You travel to countries like Qatar. Some of you travel to Qatar. Some of you travel to Saudi Arabia. And when you go there, you abide by the laws there. You just showed Nigeria. Nigeria's punishment is 15 years. Yet they go to Nigeria, they go to these countries and respect the law there. But think that Ghana should become a jungle because we think that we are Yesuyatra, because we think that we are so liberal. The Americans who are funding you, in American states, they are passing legislation to curb LGBTQ. 2 days ago, Tennessee passed legislation in its house that banned the flying of even the flags. They've not just banned the activity, you can't even fly the flags in public schools right now. They're protecting their children. And so what they are rejecting in their own countries, you want to come and impose it here. In the United States, 27 out of their 50 states have laws that ban one form or the other LGBTQ. That's more than 50% of their states. And yet you want to paint a picture that you are so academic. How academic are you? Are you the places you are getting the funding from? In their own home countries, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is pointing out that homosexuality makes a person 400 times, a homosexual person is 400 times more likely to abuse substance and be an alcoholic and be a drug abuser than a heterosexual person. And it constitutes a health crisis. A homosexual person is 400 times more suicidal than a heterosexual person. Not me, the CDC. It says that a man who has sex with another man is 400 times more likely to get HIV/AIDS than a heterosexual man. And you think that this is something that we should allow you advocate for in the name of academic freedoms? Well, rights are definite. And I'll be glad for you to go and test the law in court and show to the courts what rights you are defending. And you see, let me just wrap up with this, Aisha, because I'm sure you want to bring in a few other people. It's extremely important that we understand that in this country, nobody is marginalizing any group of people. And Michael makes that point, that why do we need this law? Because you have Section 104 of the Criminal Offences Act. Well, maybe, Michael, you should go and read the Attorney General's memo to Parliament. In that memo, the Attorney General actually applauded us because Section 104, if you read Section 104, in light of the Supreme Court's ruling in Banusin versus the Republic 2014, where natural carnal knowledge is defined by our Supreme Court, you realize that Section 104 is discriminatory because it cannot apply to lesbians because it talks about penetration. And lesbians do not have a natural organ for penetration. And so the Attorney General is unable to prosecute any female engaged in lesbianism under Section 104. And so when you have a law that is 1960, which at the time was dealing with what was the known form of homosexuality, and today you have transgenders, you have all kinds of insane perversions being bandied around as lifestyles, and we are making our laws representative of it, You say, why are we doing that? Amen.
Very Reverend, I want to bring you in now, and I'll give you the opportunity, Michael and Dr. Odoi, to come in on this. Very Reverend, you've been in support for this from day one. Now it's been passed. So what? Do we have Very Reverend AJ?
Yes, the church is very happy. The leadership of the Catholic Church is very happy with the passage of this bill. And we are praying and hoping that the President will assent to this bill so that it becomes law. And congratulations to Parliament for the 100%. And that is our objective, because from the Christian point of view, the bill seeks to promote what Christianity is all about. Human beings were created in the image and likeness of God. And throughout the Bible, homosexuality, lesbianism, whatever, has not been, they are contrary to the tenets of the Holy Scriptures. So we thank Parliament for passing this bill. And we hope what comes out of it. Thank you.
Dr. Odoi, your group also talk about how this will affect the work of the media. I think you made mention about the editorial bit, and then you try to differentiate editorial advocacy and all of that, trying to say that what is in the law actually affects the job of the media. I mean, I just want you to elaborate more on this, how this would actually lead to or bring back criminal libel law.
Okay, thank you. But before then, I would want to respond to a few issues that Sam George raised. There's one thing that I think he has to make clear. This is not the first place he's mentioned that using statistics from CDD. There's a reason why they are numbers. So I think he has to go beyond looking at the numbers that I'm mentioning to look at the reasons behind the reason why queer persons are more likely to be suicidal than heterosexual persons, because they lack support. There's no support. And that is one of the things we are doing to them right now. So right now, if anybody is going through a problem, they don't have any outlet to go seek support. But as a heterosexual person, you can just go out there and talk to any doctor, and then you are okay. So these are some of the reasons why those statistics speak to the higher numbers when it comes to issues of mental health and suicide amongst that community. So he has to go and look beyond the numbers and speak to the issues that are informing the numbers that are being put out there. Also, I think he has to consider the fact that sexual risk is not limited to queer community. There's sexual risk even among heterosexuals. Heterosexuals that engage in anal sex are also a public health risk. So if you are looking at saying that this is just a group, and then if we halt their practices, we save public health, you are opening up a number of people. If we are saying that heterosexual community in Ghana is bigger, you are opening up a number of women who are being exposed to heterosexual, to a number of anal sex, to a number of sexual health risks that we have to pay attention to. And nobody is saying that we cannot have rights, whether as a bigger group or small group. We are saying that we have to pay attention to the issues at hand, and those are some of the issues that Michael was raising. And he also mentioned the fact that who ask of your sexual preferences? Nobody needs to ask. Sam George, you need to pay attention to the actions and the hostility that is coming out of this bill. Now you just have to have effeminate characteristics, and everybody assumes that you're queer because that is the image that we have put out there about who queer persons are. But we have a number of queer persons who may not even exhibit such traits, and they are not at risk. I did a research, and I looked at homophobic violence in Ghana, when and where it counts. And it counts when people actually tend to think that if you have effeminate characteristics, then automatically you're queer. So people that are not even in the community are at risk right now, and they are being targeted. So you don't have to be asked by your boss to be able to, for them to be able to say that, okay, you're queer. We have people that make posts, and just by the mere fact that they are men and exhibiting those traits, people already tag them as gay, and that has consequences. So they don't need to be asked. If that is the case, then we don't even need to criminalize, because nobody will have to know what we do in our bedroom. Do we know what you do in your bedroom with your partner? No, we don't come to ask. So we assume that everything is perfect and you are okay. We don't know the kind of dangerous sex that may be happening in people's bedrooms, even heterosexual. And then with the media, you mentioned his opening statement that he assumed that the media is an ally. You are gagging the media straight away, saying that it's either they align with Parliament on this bill or that's it. They cannot support. But the media is there to be a voice to the people, put out issues that are detrimental so that we can engage them as a society and find solutions to them. You don't just coerce the media and say that ally for which reason? to promote something that we think is detrimental. One way the media is going to have issues is the fact that if there are pressing issues that you're supposed to raise in the media concerning LGBT issues, now it's going to be very difficult because promotion is subjective, once again, as I say. Talking about LGBT issues may come with a different reason for which the media is reporting. Whatever somebody does with that information, you can never tell. But then you can be assumed that by the mere fact that you are publishing certain news items, certain activities on your news item, then it means that they are liable. Right now, the media outlets cannot show certain movies that are supposed to be having queer perspective. But for all you know, the content of that media item you're showing could be speaking to an issue that may be raised in this bill for whatever reason, but you cannot promote them anymore. And these are the things that we're saying that needs to be addressed, and these are things we need to pay attention to. What I find surprising is that we are not going to regulate what people share on their social media outlets, what information people put out there. So if I find out that somebody, there's a care committee, so I can just make a post, oh, look at these people, and then it's two men probably engaging in hugging or something, and then automatically I could be attacked for promoting queerness. But it could never be. It could be two friends, it could be two siblings hugging and showing affection, and that's it. That has consequences. So this is the extent to which we are trying to limit and curtail our ability to be able to pass on information and be held criminally liable for certain things that might not even be intended.